I was in my 40s when I met the love of my life. I will now name as Mary. I met Mary, I was 49. It was 2011. So I think I'd abandoned thought of getting married at that stage.
I'm Emily Calloway, and this is Kismet. Kismet is a podcast featuring your true love stories. Today, I will be kicking off the second season with Simon. Simon will be sharing his story of how, at 49 years old, having never been married, he said yes to a setup and met the love of his life. Hello, Simon.
Hello, Emily.
Thank you so much for joining me on Kismet today.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, you are my first guest of season 2.
Really?
So I feel a little bit out of practice, but for those of you who are listening right now, one of the reasons why I took a little bit of a hiatus is because I have been on stage performing with this gentleman right here. So met him while doing a run of a show called The Jury Experience Death by AI, which is still, by the way, going on, and heard his love story and decided to invite him on, and he was a willing participant, thankfully. So here we are.
I think we're due to perform it a week on Saturday, aren't we, Emily?
Yeah, yep. So one more until August, unless they sneak any more
Unless we get more gigs.
Which knowing them is a very real possibility. So Simon, to get started today, I'd love for you just to tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are. Obviously, you're British, you're an actor, but a little bit more about sort of your story.
Certainly. Well, Simon Boughey, born in Derby in the Midlands of England and grew up just outside Stoke-on-Trent and was educated at school and university in England, at a high school in Staffordshire, and then at Cambridge University reading history. And I came to the US initially at the age of 27 as a financial journalist. So I was transferred. And that's when the acting kicked off, really. I'd done kicked off is when I started. Kicked off is a slightly glamorous description of it. But I started it, certainly. I took acting classes in New York to begin with, and then did off-Broadway shows and did a couple of tours. And then I went back to England in 2002, but used to come back to New York probably twice a year. And it was on one of those return visits I met the love of my life.
Oh, so I am learning new things about you, obviously. I just assumed that as great of an actor as you are, that you went to school for acting, that you have been doing this, like that you were a lifer from the beginning. So I knew you were also doing financial journalism sort of as a side hustle, as we call it. But
that's right. I mean, I went to Cambridge, which is alive with theatre.
Yeah.
And, there was stuff going on all the time, but I didn't have the confidence to do it. That's as simple as that. I think I was intimidated by the whole Cambridge theatre scene. I'd grown up with it. My dad was an actor, and some of the earliest memories I have of going to see him on stage and been taken with him to see plays. So it was in my blood. My grandfather was a singer and did 2 seasons at Covent Garden just after the Second World War. So performance was in the Bowie blood, but I was just lacking confidence to do it, I think. And then it was the great freedom of the immigrant to recreate yourself. When I arrived in the United States, I thought, what did I really want to do? And I'd been removed from this sort of support network of all these friends from college that I had in London. So I was on my own. And I just thought what I always wanted to do, I wanted to act. So then I started taking acting classes. So
you go back to London. So take me before you met the love of your life. I'd love to just kind of hear sort of what your experience was with dating or relationships prior to that. So had you ever been married or engaged or lived with anyone or anything like that?
Oh, I'd been engaged. Sorry, I'm wrong there. I'd been engaged actually probably twice or three times. I was a serial engager. But if I'm honest, I never thought any of them were really the one. And they all ended. I think the third engagement actually is with an asterisk in the record books. I think I'd proposed, but no ring had ever been forthcoming, and she ditched me before rings were forthcoming. So that's not a real engagement. But the other two, I did propose, and there were rings, but they didn't go forward. I don't think dates had ever been set. So I wasn't confident of either of those, to be honest with you. Was I dating? Yeah, I was. I was a single man in New York in the 90s, so that was a pretty good time.
Yeah,
pretty good time to be single and English, to be honest. But I was in my 40s when I met the love of my life. I will now name as Mary. I met Mary. I was 49. It was 2011. So I think I'd abandoned thought of getting married at that stage.
Yeah. That was going to be my next question. If you still sort of saw that as something that you wanted or thought about, or if it was sort of just, I'm 44, we've talked about this, and I'm to the point now where I'm just sort of like, I'm single, I'm happy being single. I'm, obviously like to meet the right person, but it just sort of is what it is after a certain point.
Absolutely. And I think I was at that point. It didn't really bother me, to be honest with you. I thought, well, yeah, it's just not. There are reasons why I think I was quite happy on my own, and without going into the psychobabble rabbit hole too deeply. I grew up as the elder brother of a very deeply disabled sister who's still alive. Ruth, to whom I'm very close. But I was kind of a third parent growing up, and there was a great deal of moral, emotional pressure to be as kind and caring and attentive to Ruth as I possibly could be. That was a way to earn parental approval. And I have no recriminations to lob in the way of my parents. I miss them, and they love me very much, and they were very loving, dutiful parents. But they were very acutely aware of Ruth's needs, and I think possibly more acutely aware of hers than they were of mine, which is somewhat understandable because I wasn't deeply disabled. But that was quite a lot of pressure. So I did grow up thinking that relationships were a hell of a burden, and that I would need to take care of somebody. And I did grew up thinking through a lot of my 30s and 40s, although I was in relationships, in and out, that it was difficult. It was emotionally difficult for me to be attentive, to take care of them. It always seemed a big burden, and I was happier on my own. And I always thought that. And I think that's where I was when I met Mary. I just thought, this is not going to happen to me, and I'm not constituted for it. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Well, one thing, we'll get into this, I think, a little bit later, but the thing that kind of immediately comes to mind as you're talking to me about this is the flip side about that, is who takes care of Simon? Who like, maybe you felt that you couldn't have that sort of burden, as you called it, to take care of someone else. But there's also that flip side where we all deserve someone to take care and dote on us and adore us too.
Absolutely. And that's where I thought I was okay on my own, but being with Mary, Mary's taking care of me and does take care of me. And it has been transformative. To experience that. She is the center and beginning and end of my life.
Gonna make me cry already. We haven't even gotten into it.
We haven't even gone to it yet. But so I am taken care of. There was a key moment in this, because you're right, I took care of Simon. I was used to doing that, and I had been on my own a lot growing up, taking care of myself, so it felt kind of normal. And I say I was okay being single. There were warning signs that this was not actually that great. Going home to my family every Christmas in my 40s, I thought, this really doesn't work anymore. And I was going on holiday, on vacation on my own in London in my 40s, going to Mediterranean hotspots, and it just felt this is not a particularly good look. I'm not massively happy with this. But it was a key moment when Mary and I first started seeing each other, and I was in London and she was in New York. So we were doing transatlantic. And one night in the middle of the night, I got up and bashed my toe on the step up to her bathroom, and it bled profusely. And Mary took care of me. And I remember vividly thinking, this is good.
Yeah.
I've missed this. I've missed it.
Yeah.
I haven't had it,
So how did you meet Mary? Take me back. You said you met in New York. You were living in London at that time? Or?
I was. Okay. I was. It's a good story. So settle
that's
in.
Why you're on.
Settle
we want to hear
listeners. So I was back in New York. Now there's a lady who needs a shout out here called Elizabeth Mahone, and if Elizabeth is listening, then she definitely needs a shout out. Elizabeth and I had done quite a few plays off Broadway in New York in the 90s, and she'd made it. I think, a one-woman mission in life to find me a bride. And so she introduced me to various people to no avail. And then I was back in New York in 2011 for a week and a bit. And she said, you got to meet my friend Mary. And I had zero enthusiasm for this. And if you talk to Mary, she had equally zero enthusiasm for it. And so she said, we're going to be at Harry's Bar on Hanover Square on September the 17th, and I remember it. It's Oyster Fest down on Stone Street, so the street flows in rivers of Prosecco, and people eat their oysters. So I went down there resentful of having to go down. So I was like, it's a long way, I've got a few days in New York, and we were all the way downtown. And there was a group of people in a bar with Elizabeth, and Mary was one of them. And that's how we met, Harry's Bar in Hanover Square. And it was a very, nothing much happened that first meeting. I thought she was very attractive, and we alas would delude ourselves if we thought that was not the initial thing that hooks people in. Now, hopefully there's a lot more beyond that, but I thought she was very attractive. She was very pretty. Yeah. And then we went for a walk in a group, and we chatted about books. And she said that you thought, okay, well, this guy has a bit of a soul. If she were here, she'd say she thought I was an arch player, an aging arch player.
Oh,
so
my
she
God.
was worried. But we talked about books, and she thought, okay, well, maybe there's a bit more going on upstairs. And that's how we met and connected. So Elizabeth sort of just facilitated the introduction, but we met with a group of people in this bar.
So you said that you were in New York for a week and some change. So did you, after that first meeting, did you continue to hang out with her in New York, or how did it sort of progress from that point?
How it moved on after that, I was still on Facebook in these days. We had Facebook exchanges for a very kind of trivial, uneventful kind over the next month or two. And she said, I've got some vacation coming up, and I was thinking of coming to London. Would you be around in this week? And the first week I was on a cricket tour to Malta. So I said, I can't do that week. And that prompted a lot of amusing comments about cricket. And she said, isn't it an advanced form of croquet? And apparently there was a massive sense of humour failure across the Atlantic at that point. So I said, okay, this week in November, I'm around. Now, she didn't stay with me. She stayed at an Airbnb in Notting Hill. And she said that she thought to herself, well, if this guy's a bit of a jerk, then I can still hang out in London, it's fine. So we saw each other during that week. We didn't spend every day together. We went for dinner the first night, and I took her to Cambridge. That was my... That was, if you're not wowed by that, then forget it. So as a member of my college, I'm allowed to dine in college once every term. So we went and dined on High Table. And so that was, if you're not knocked out by that. But actually, what was striking about that, she was impressed with it without being overwhelmed, which I was struck by. So we did all that. And then the last night, we went to the theatre, and this is a key moment as well, I think. We went to the theatre, but we had dinner beforehand at a place called Café Bohème in Soho, which is still there. And we were late for the curtain, and I'd never, ever been late for a curtain before in my life, and despise people who are. Yeah. People who come in late and kind of come in the dark across their seats. I want to hit them. But I was one of the, because we'd been talking so much.
Lost track of time.
And I thought that was, and I suddenly looked at my watch and said, we need to go. So we were late. And at the end of that week, the Earth had clearly shifted on its axis a bit. And that's when I realized it was serious. Because if I'm honest, when she said, I'm coming over for a week, and I said, well, we could do this, we could do the other, but I don't want to monopolize your time. And she said, monopolize at will. So I thought, great, it's going to be a pleasant week-long fling with this rather pretty blonde American who's coming over. But at the end of the week, I thought differently. I thought, this has shifted. So, but of course, she went back to New York. At the end of it.
I was curious, so you met in New York, and then you had this sort of Facebook messaging, and then she comes to see you. So was that the expectation when she came to see you on either of your side? I mean, obviously she's coming. So there is that sort of like, I think something's going on here, but had it been flirty, was there sort of this buildup of romantic proposition?
There was certainly flirtiness, yes.
Yeah.
And I say, Mary flirted with monopolize at will. That's quite flirtatious.
Yeah.
And the first date in London at a restaurant called St. John's, as an actor friend of mine used to work at, we kind of smooched at the end of that, at that first date. But if I'm honest, Emily, I just thought it's going to be a week-long affair.
Yeah.
But by the end of the week, I didn't think that. But going into it, that's what I thought. Because that was my mode. That was my modus operandus. And it was a traditional, trusted modus operandus. I had to shift into putting away childish things, if you like, that Mary is my focus and we'll move heaven and earth to be together. And every other distraction has to go. This has to be the focus. But I didn't start that week thinking anything like that. This developed. But by the end of that first week, I thought, this is serious, yes.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'd love to hear her perspective too, because since she was that one that made that initial plan to come see you, that's pretty bold. Like, she could have gone anywhere in the world, and
absolutely.
I guarantee you she chose to come to see you, not just because she wanted a trip to the UK, but because she felt like there was something there, or
she did,
liked you, or something bigger that was moving inside of her and stirring, that said, hey, I'm going to take this risk and go see this man. She
was the one that did the heavy lifting in that respect by saying, I'm going to go to London to meet this guy. Then after that, it was reciprocal. We made trips back and forth.
I love to know just sort of how you manage, like how often you saw each other, how you manage those, the transcontinental.
That I went over to New York Christmas. So Mary came to London November 2011. I went to New York Christmas 2011. She came to London February 2012 for my 50th birthday, actually. So, I mean, this is the thing. I look like a 50. I'm already quite fucking old here, but it didn't feel that way. I think I was living in a kind of fool's paradise of thinking you're youthful when you're actually not that youthful. Anyway, she came over for my 50th birthday, and then we had 2 trips to Florida. Once in April 2012. Actually, she came to London again in March, and then we did trips to Florida in April and May. And I should add that my mother was dying during this year. She'd been diagnosed with what's called motor neuron disease in England, and ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, here in 2011. And that did... I knew this was happening. And whether Mary and it did affect my thinking, that I realized that this very tight quartet that had been my family, my growing up, my dad, my sister, my mum and me, that was going to fracture. And suddenly, quickly. And I remember pushing mum in a wheelchair around in the summer of 2011, thinking, this is all going to end. All that I've known is going to end, but my life has to go on. And I'm going to have to change a bit. And I did meet Mary shortly after that. So there was a shift in thinking. There's a shift in thinking that I was conscious of. Anyway, Mum was dying the whole of this year. So it was very stressful and traumatic. So we went to Florida in May 2012, and the disease was always accelerating really quickly. And she died in June. Mary came over for the funeral, which I thought was very impressive as well, because she only knew me. She met my friends and my father and family under pretty trying circumstances. Then there was a hiatus. I was suffering, and I didn't see emotion. Then I saw her again in September. I think Mary would say that was a quite weird meeting. And you kind of wondered, certainly I think she would say she wondered if it was going to continue at that point. We'd made all this progress, but it was in the aftermath of my mum's death, I was raw and not particularly good company, I don't think. And anyway, in October of 2012, Mary lost her job. She was working as an executive assistant in private equity in New York. And I said, look, why don't you come and stay with me for a month? Because up till now, we've been, transatlantic. We've seen each other briefly on these exotic trips, Florida and New York. And just come and live with me for a week. I have to work. I was out of acting at the time. I was working at a bank in Canary Wharf. So I had to leave every day, come and stay with me. And we did do quite romantic things as well. I took her to Paris. That was another key moment in the courtship. We went to Paris in November 2012. And it was therapeutic for me getting over my mum's death. And at the end of that month, I think I felt things were back to where they had been, but even better. And I said to her, I can see this Emily now, standing in the living room of my flat in Islington, saying to her, I want you to come back to live here with me permanently. And in a year's time, I want us to be married. And the words were out of my mouth before I could get them back. But so that's what happened. So that was November 2012, and Mary moved to London in March 2013, and we were married at Islington Registry Office in April. We had to get married quite quickly because she was coming over on a fiancé visa, and then we had the proper all singing, all dancing wedding in Cambridge that December. So that's the timeline. That is the timeline.
Oh my gosh. Wow, that is a lot. So, just thinking about like my own experience with grief and losing a parent, I lost my dad 2 years ago, and just, the way that it shapes your entire worldview. It just cracks you open in a completely different, unexpected way. You think you know how you're going to handle something like that. You think you're prepared. I'm sure you felt maybe prepared after this year, but then when it actually happens, it's a new world.
It is. You're left with this. I mean, I miss them both. I lost my dad, who lived for 10 years after Mum. He was 95 when he died, so a great age.
Wow. Yeah.
I lost him 4 years ago, but I miss him every day. I miss them both every day.
Yeah.
Ruth, my sister, lives in a home for the disabled in Sandbach in the northwest, and one of the staff there said, "Can you give us old photographs of Ruth?" So I spent Sunday afternoon, evening going through literally thousands of photographs from my family, finding pictures of Ruth. And, I had to stop after a while because I was in floods of tears.
Yeah.
That these people that are so much a part of your life, in every fibre of your being, upon whom hopefully you can rely at all times, and is always in your corner. Both of my parents always were in my corner. They're not there anymore. It's part of life. We all go through it, but it is an enormously traumatic experience. Well, there's nothing more. I mean, it's ill health and death are the only really serious things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was that period afterwards was tough. Tough.
It definitely, I mean, in my experience, just really also changed the way that I looked at the world. And like, I quit my job last year. I have always continued acting, but getting on stage and starting this podcast, all of these things came about after my dad's passing, because life is short, and
100%.
Chasing purpose and chasing depth and things that actually mean, and people that mean things, which, obviously I think that probably definitely had an impact on your relationship and your vulnerability and ability to, connect with Mary in that way. It's,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is to this day a tremendous sadness to me that she never met my mother. My mother would have loved her, and she would have been a great mother-in-law to Mary. Mary's become very keen on gardening in the last year or two. Mary Capability Boughey, and she's wrought wonders in our garden up here in Cartersville. She's touched the earth and made it fruitful, and it reminds me of my mother all the time. Time.
Did your mom, I don't know, with the state of her disease, and was she aware that you were in this new blossoming relationship?
Yes, absolutely. Mary was due to come over to meet Mum in June 2012, but it moved too quickly. She died before she could meet Mary, but she knew I was involved with somebody very important.
Yeah.
And what I did, I read emails that Mary had sent to me to her on only weeks before she died. And Mary had said things, and we talked about the garden. And Mary said in the garden how that will live on beyond your mother. So I remember reading that out to her.
Yeah.
And Mum saying, "She sounds wonderful."
Oh. She probably, so I know that my mom has always kind of said to me, she's always wanted me to find the right person. The right person has always been very, very much emphatic. Like, I want you to be with the right person. But she's like, so I don't have to worry about you. And I'm sure your mom is the same way. 'Cause she wants us, she was able to move on in peace, knowing that her son had someone that loved him. And
I hope so. I mean, I often say, I wish my mum could see us now and see how happy we are together.
Yeah.
Because she would be so happy.
Yeah.
And Mary said, I think she can. I think she can.
I think so.
But it is, you don't get everything in life, do you? It would have been wonderful if we'd met earlier and she'd known my mother, but probably I wouldn't have been ready. So
yeah,
this is the way that it works out. But yeah, my mother was worried about me. That's categorical. She said this to friends of the family who, with enormous lack of tact, reported it on to me.
Oh my goodness!
So
Moms.
Yeah, that's right. She actually said,
"You met my mom."
I have indeed. I have indeed, and a very charming lady she is.
Yeah. Well, she thought you were great. She was a big Simon fan.
It's she said that she was more worried about me than my sister, who is gravely disabled, because she said that there'll always be someone to take care of Ruth. She'll be, there'll be facilities there, but it won't be necessarily someone to take care of Simon.
That's
so she was concerned, yes. And she was very wise. I mean, I'd say to her blithely in my 40s, it's too late, Mum. I'm done here. It's not going to happen. And she said, it's never too late, Simon. You don't know what is around the corner.
Yep. That's exactly right. Okay. So you got married, and then that was 2012, you said, I believe?
2013 we got married.
2013. Okay. And so it's been 13 years. So obviously we met in Georgia. So you're back stateside. So take me through sort of your trajectory since then.
Certainly. Well, we got married and lived in England for 5 years, and the latter two in Teddington. It's a beautiful flat on Teddington, I still miss, on the river. But Mary wanted to come back to the States. And it was also, we wanted to kickstart our performance careers, which had languished for both of us. Mary had a very good, pretty successful career as an actress and singer in her 20s and 30s, and did a lot of regional stuff. And it had languished for both of us. So her idea was we could have recapitulated it in London, but I'd felt that I was very jaundiced with the London market at the time, in the same way I'd become jaundiced with the Atlanta market, but there you go, at the time. And we decided to try it in the States. And we initially thought of LA, because obviously, why not? But then Mary spoke to an ex-theatre colleague of hers, and she said, try Atlanta, which is the new kind of burgeoning centre for TV and film, and there'll be less competition essentially than in LA. Anyway, so that's why we moved here. And we've made a life here. We lived in Atlanta and then moved out to this house in Cartersville, which is about 50 miles north of Atlanta, just over 3 years ago. And this is my life. I am only really contented here with her and our two golden retrievers. And that is the enormous turnaround, the shift. I mean, somewhere 35-year-old Simon is looking at me thinking, what happened? What happened here, mate? Because I am only really happy or content with her. I mean, I like other people, but I'm, and she works from home, I work from home, so we're around each other 24/7. And we still like each other and get on very well. We've just come back for a week in Florida, and we get on fantastically well there. And it's remarkable. I never, ever predicted that for myself. I did not think that was possible, that I would be so happy, so content in one other person's company for so long.
I love that. I mean, I think that, that speaks to why your prior engagements didn't work out. Like you said, there was sort of an inkling it wasn't quite right. And rather than moving ahead and being, with somebody, just to have somebody there that is good enough, but it's not the right person.
Absolutely. I was aware of that. I just felt, we kind of should do this. And, but if I look back on the 3 women that two I was definitely engaged to, and one I was sort of engaged to, they would have all been, for various reasons, bad.
Yeah.
Bad for me and bad for them.
Yeah. Relationships don't work out for a reason.
Absolutely.
And they teach us lessons, but they serve their purpose. But
there's so much luck involved. I think I was in a right state to meet Mary when I did. Mm-hmm. But if you look at how we met, Elizabeth said, "Come down," and I could have said no. I could have easily said no.
Yeah.
To that, and when I got downtown to where Harry's Bar and Hanover Square is, I'd lost my sense of direction completely. I didn't know where it was. And I thought, I can't find it. I'm going. And I asked, it was the first day of Occupy Wall Street. And I asked a cop, and he pointed me in diametrically the opposite direction. So I was on my way back to the subway to go back. And I thought, oh, it's there. I know where it is. Mm-hmm. So there were these sort of sliding doors. There was great chance involved in us both meeting in this bar. Yeah. May not have happened at all. But after that, after you've made the kind of initial contact and you realize this person is special, then you've got to take courage in hand. That is the lesson of that. And I could easily have walked away because I was frightened.
Yeah.
I was frightened of, suddenly abandoning being single and my own boss and everything else. I was scared. I had to, and Mary actually moved over to England, a country she didn't know. So was even more scared. But there's a time comes when you've got to kind of just gird your loins and go forward.
Yeah. Well, I think, speaking on courage and just kind of mindset around that sort of stuff, when you think about the geographic locations, when you think about the practicality, when you think about sort of reasonableness and logical, the logic, so many people would say, oh, this isn't going to work. Like, we live across the world from each other. We're in our 40s. We've, especially after having had failed relationships, and we're all guarded. We've all had bad things or not pleasant things that have happened in terms of relationships at this point of our lives. And, the fun of being ghosted or, cheated on or, choose your own adventure, whatever has happened to you. It's so easy to just be pessimistic and refuse to go there,
Absolutely. I mean, Mary hadn't been in a relationship, and she was 46, remember, when we met. So, she wasn't a kid either. She'd been in a relationship, hadn't been in a relationship for 2 years, and then had a sort of a poor one for 7 years before that. So she had to take courage in hand to get to that one too. And then, you've got to put the hurt behind you and just go forward, as there is some courage required. But it was difficult. It was difficult. And I'll be honest, I had a real wobble when Mary was due to come over. In the early part of 2013, it would have been. I had a real wobble. This was not going to be a success, and what was I doing? And I didn't know this person, everything else. And I was seeing this is getting very, very New York. I was seeing a therapist at the time, and who'd seen me as a couple therapist with the previous relationship, which had been catastrophic before Mary. So I just continued to see this person independently. I went to see my therapist, and I said, I'm having all these fears. And she just stopped me and said, Simon, these are old voices. Being in therapy doesn't mean you're not frightened and you don't hear those voices. It means going on anyway. And that, I mean, God, that was, I remember that absolutely profoundly. And when Ruth, this therapist, retired a few years ago, and I spoke to her, I said, my debt to you is unpayable. You changed my life. So that made sense to me. That made sense that when you just, I have the fears are there, the voices, all the other voices of my youth, that this is not for you, you can't do this isn't right, you won't be able to be responsible for someone else, you're better on your own, you're happier on your own. Those had to be heard, but not necessarily listened to.
It's interesting just thinking about that and just thinking about sort of the parallel with being an actor and like the risks that we take, the financial risks, the instability, moving across the world multiple times for you in your case, and sort of the rejection. And it's interesting that so often we're able to put ourselves out there in that way, but like romantically, it's a challenge.
Completely. Yeah. It's very different types of risk involved. And I think for me, whereas the risk involved in acting, it felt part of me, acting has always felt absolutely right for me. I'm surprised I went so many years without doing it fully or being committed to it. Because it always felt absolutely true to my core. A lot of jobs I've done have felt untrue to my core. But being single kind of felt true to my core as well. Being that felt it expressed an essence of who I was, and I had to get beyond that. To realize that, and being on your own is tough. I mean, when I look back, I met Mary at 49. I honestly can't remember what I was doing before I was 49. It's like a fog.
Yeah. It is very interesting. I mean, just being a single person right now, it's been a number of years since I've been in a relationship. And, when I'm in a relationship for a long period of time, then that feels natural. And I feel like, oh yeah, this is, I have a tough time transitioning out of a relationship and going back to being single and, just sort of being by myself all the time. But then now it's been a number of years and I've been by myself and I can hardly remember what it felt like to be in a relationship. It's interesting how you adapt and your world changes. And now I'm like, I can't even imagine like I would like that, with the right person, but I just can't even fathom what that would be like at this point,
Well, I was, when I was in a relationship with people before Mary, it didn't feel natural or normal, if I'm honest. It didn't feel a congenial state of being for me. It didn't feel right. And it did with Mary. That was the transformative part of it. It was so easy, I think. I'd unexpectedly easy. That, and there are some kind of key elements to that. We both have a very low threshold or tolerance of conflict. If we do fight, there are rows, not many, but there are. But we both hate being at loggerheads so much that we want to make it up ASAP.
Yeah.
And I've been in relationships with women who actively thrived on conflict.
Yeah.
And, really liked it, really liked the arguing. And I hated it. And Mira does too. So that was absolutely key. I think there's a good yin and yang, that she's very upbeat and positive. And she said to me very early on in a taxi cab at the back of New York, I default to happiness. And I said, yes, I do. You know I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yin and yang. Yep.
yeah. So that was, without Mary, I'd only have the voices of madness.
Yeah.
My own voices of madness in my head. So, she keeps me sane as much as anything else too.
Oh, wow. I love that. So one of the things I'm curious about as someone that found, this love later on in life, one of the things I think that I see people struggle with, and perhaps I've struggled with to a certain extent myself. I know I've definitely dated people that have struggled with them having this, is the selfishness when you've been along for a long time and have become accustomed to doing your own thing, your own way, and that sort of being able to compromise. So how did you work through that? Did you experience any sort of that sort of reluctance with the selfishness piece of it, or did she, and how did you work through that?
I think I definitely did. Because I never felt that Mary was going to blow up at me, because I never felt I was walking on eggshells. It was easier for me to relinquish the selfishness and be more giving to her. And because I felt valued and applauded and loved and cared for. And, in the past, I'd been with people who either built me up and then would knock me down again. And that never happened with Mary. So that kind of frees you to be less selfish and to take this person into account at all times. So I think that was what she gave me. That was the kind of freedom that she gave me to be less selfish. When we got married at Cambridge, in my groom's speech, I had this whole series of jokes about compromise. How people would say to me, "The reason you're not married, Simon, you can't compromise." So I said in the speech, clearly this compromise thing is a big deal. So I looked it up online to see what it means, but I never felt I was having to compromise too much. It felt easy to put her first, and I do. Her happiness is more important to me than my own. We are, it is combined. That if she does things that are successful or afford her pleasure, that's more important to me than doing it myself. So she gave me the kind of freedom, I think, to be less selfish.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. That's really beautiful. Well, I was wondering if you have any advice for the singles out there, such as myself. What sort of wisdom would you like to bestow on us?
It is, by the way, remarkable to be in the position of being a sort of a marriage relationship guru, having been single for so long. It's not a role I've come to easily.
Listen, Simon, I'd rather hear from you that's been through the trenches than some 25-year-old, somebody that met somebody 22, nothing against them, but they met at 22, they've been married forever, and, they've never been out in the wild that is 2026 dating or, 2012 dating even. So
if I had any advice, I think, and you didn't necessarily write these down, but to have a core idea of what are game changers and what aren't. Because there are things that Mary and I don't agree on. And there are things that she does that often annoy the hell out of me. But they're not game changers. They're not game changers. If she'd been into conflict, that would have been a game changer. If the first time I took her to the Peak District in Staffordshire and Derbyshire, which is very special to me, the first time, if she'd not thought it was great, or if she'd been a bit indifferent to it, that would have been a game changer. If, I'd said, I'd like you to come to the funeral, my mother died, and she could easily have said yes, or so it said no, that would have probably been a game changer too. But the other things, the other sources of conflict aren't game changers. So it's quite important, I think, to have, and this is only becomes aware over time of the kind of core values or needs that you have, and how this person aligns with those, and if you can tolerate some of the differences, and some of the differences you probably can't. And if I look back, I know in these relationships that didn't work, there were clues early on that I really was never, ever going to be able to tolerate that, or tolerate it acceptably. And yet you go on thinking, it'll kind of, get better or something. It never does.
No.
So listen to that voice of that. If someone does something or says something that is always going to be an issue, really fundamental issue, not something that annoys you, but is fatal to your sense of self, to your capacity to enjoy the world, that's to be listened to. And kind of, I think, to use a banal analogy, when you're looking for a house or a flat, you tend to rationalize it because you're so keen to get a flat, to get an apartment or a house. Okay, it's all right, we can deal with that. And you look back and you think, what was I even thinking of? I couldn't have dealt with that. I couldn't have dealt with the neighbors. I couldn't have dealt with the wonky floor. And it is not dissimilar in a relationship. Have a clear idea of what you need and what will be acceptable and what's a game changer and what isn't.
Yeah. I think that's very wise. I mean, hindsight is definitely 20/20 for sure. But it sounds like the ways that she showed up, she showed genuine interest in the things that were important to you, respect for it. She wasn't negging you, so to speak, and saying, why do you like this place? Like, oh, it's so old, or whatever. She was respecting it, and she recognized, she had reverence for the importance that it had for you.
That's 100% right, Emily. If she'd said any of those things about things that were special to me, that would have been a game changer.
Right.
She was absolutely respectful of, where I'm from. And let's say that day in Cambridge, she wasn't overawed by it, but nor was she critical, snotty, which she could have been about it easily. So that would have been a game changer, but I say I credit her with giving me the freedom to be me.
Yeah. Well, she loves you for you, and she sees you, and she, supports you and respects you, and all of those things make you feel safe and also give you that space to be yourself.
And it grows on itself, that does. When someone treats you that way, then you are free to treat them back, and then it just grows like a plant. It gets better and bigger and stronger because you both allow yourself to do that. Mary says this, you think you've reached a point of you're at the maximum of being able to love someone. You can't love anyone anymore. That's it. You're kind of topped out. And yet you find another level. And that's through sort of time and being together and trust as well. And I was not, I will be honest, a poster boy for fidelity in the relationships I was in previously. But there's nothing on God's green earth that would tempt me to disrupt what I have with Mary.
Yeah. Well, I am very thankful that you didn't go forward with any of those other young ladies that you were engaged or somewhat engaged to, quasi engaged to back in the day, because I really love your love story. I love the way that you talk about her. And, as someone that is older myself, but like you, when you said you were turning 50 and you felt still young, I also feel still I'm naively feeling still young, even in my 44-year-old age. But it does inspire me to also, I know in my heart that the decisions I've made have been the right decisions for me. And it gives me hope, and I know it'll give other people hope that who have made the same decisions to, move on from relationships that weren't working and have hope that there would be something better on the other side of that could still exist for me.
Certainly. And I would just say that, of course, I'm 20 years older than you. And so you're still pretty useful to me. And I was shocked when I heard you were 44 because you could pass for 34 any day of the week.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I mean, I always joke that there is a blessing in being so pale in that I had to wear sunscreen all the time. So sun protection.
Don't wrinkle.
That's my secret.
Yeah.
Yep. So, anyway, Simon, well, tell people how they can book you or get in touch with you if you'd like to. I can cut this part out if you don't want me to share that. But if they want to hire you.
Oh God, I'm such a whore for that. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Simon Boughey. So the email is Simon Boughey 9, and Boughey is spelled Boughey, the number 9 @gmail.com.
Instagram. Anything else?
Instagram, yeah. Simon Richard Boughey, spelled Boughey, is the Instagram handle.
Awesome. Simon is a tremendous actor, y'all. He is he plays a judge in our show, and he is just got such a presence and just does such a wonderful job. So it's been such a joy working with you these last few months.
And with you too. And thank you very much. That's very kind. And you make a wonderful defense attorney as well.
Thank you so much.
I love being on stage. I mean, that's my happy place, and always has been. And there are times in that show, because I have long periods of silence, as you know. I'm just sitting behind my desk at the top, my judge's desk, and I look out and I think, I can't believe I'm doing this. This is a joy. This is a gift to be able to do this.
It absolutely is. And I also, one of the things I love about theater is not just the, the ability to do this, but also actors are such special people. They're just so open and available and brave and giving and generous and kind. I mean, not everyone, but I would say the majority of the actors that I've met, professional actors, I should say, are some of the best humans I've ever met. So it's just a joy, like the cast, and just meeting all of y'all has been just wonderful and inspiring.
I agree with that entirely. And it I worked in the corporate world as well, and most of the people I've met in the corporate world, as soon as I've left that job, I've never seen them again. But there are actors from across my acting career on both continents that I've remained in touch with and close to because of the bond and the connection you form with actors when you're doing a play together or a film together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Simon, thank you so much for joining me today. I am sorry about all the technical difficulties. Y'all, I didn't mention, but my twinkle lights are not on because I could not find my remote. This is what happens when you go on hiatus and you're back into the theme of things and you realize that there are important things that you've forgotten to do. So anyway, bear with me, but we got some new shows coming out soon. So thank you again, Simon, for joining me today. I had such a great time talking to you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for asking me.
Thank you for tuning in to Kismet. If you connected with today's story, please like and subscribe or leave us a comment. We love that engagement. If you or someone you know has a great love story you'd like to share, please send it to me at kismetstoriespodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, be bold, be kind, and be open to everyday magic. Your person may be just down the street, or they may be at a bar across the world waiting for you, just outside of Occupy Wall Street.